continue my next slides. I'll stop here.
Yeah. Thank you, Ramesh. I would like to add that Make in India will be successful. Not only these young guys who here will get an employment, but I would say more than that, each one of you become an entrepreneur and start some industry that will make in India successful. Ramesh, you did mention about the fast changing technology, and technology is definitely going to be a prime mover for this entire, manufacturing, growth and all that. You also mentioned about the tax impediments, and definitely tax reforms are long awaited, and if they come, the entire process will be hastened up. You did mention that Make in India is not new, it started in 1991, but let me take you back at the beginning of the century. In fact, it started in 1901 when Dadabhai Nauroji said, Make in India. But of course, the context was different. But that also, he had the same thing in mind. Let the Indian economy start growing before it gets independence. And through that, India attains the independence. Anyway, thanks for a beautiful presentation and nice point presented by you. Now, may I request Mr. Lakshminarayanan to present his views, and probably this would be views of an outsider who has been staying outside and watching India very closely. So we are very eager to know your views, sir.
Thank you. First of all, it's a great pleasure for me to be here for the Checkmate 2016. I would like to thank Professor Dr. Ganesan for inviting me to be part of this. I think he has been asking me for the last 2-3 years, and I think it so happened that this year I happened to be in India at the same time as this event, because this is the normal time when I also conduct an event for student community in India called Cloud 2020, which is on innovation for student communities in India. So most of the time it clashes. The same date I have this event back in Bangalore. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here. And I'm going to talk from what I call as a global software and product engineering perspective, purely from a software perspective, because that is my area of specialization. And what does that mean to India? And I think I had the opportunity of being associated. I left India about 25 years ago. I live in Sydney, but I look after the engineering, research and development for my company in India, China and Australia. So I have a perspective on the Indian IT industry from a technology product perspective, as well as that in China and in Australia. And I work very closely with my peers back in US. So I have a view on how these things work together and from a global perspective. And I think I also was telling earlier when we had the dinner yesterday, I think I came to Pune last time was in 1992-93. Okay. So I came to Pune while I was working for a company called Fujitsu Australia. At the time, Fujitsu merged with a company called ICL. I think in India, R.P. Goenka Pune had a company called ICIM. So that became part of Fujitsu. So I was asked by my Australian Fujitsu company to say that, okay, why don't you go to Pune to find out whether we can do a global remarketing system development out of Pune. Okay, so that's the time I came back in 1992 to look at global offshoring for the first time. And that was the first time for even Fujitsu Japan, because Fujitsu is a Japanese company. So the system we were trying to develop was to be used globally across all Fujitsu, including Fujitsu Japan. So I came and stayed in Hotel Ashoka. There was no multinational hotels at that time. Hotel Ashoka near Shivaji Nagar. I think the office used to be a walking distance around the corner there. So I spent about 3 months there, and we developed the system. It was very successfully deployed back in Australia as well as in Japan. And that was my first experience in global offshoring. Okay. And then we formed a company called IKIM Fujitsu Australia Private Limited. And then IKIM spun off that part as a separate company called Zensar. I think Zensar Technologies today I can proudly say I did the first offshore development for them way back in 1992-93. Okay, just before Zensar it was spun off as a company called Zensar subsequently. So what I would like to probably touch base is, I'm going to talk about what the Make in India campaign from the government portals say, okay, and my views and perspectives on that, and maybe where I believe we should be looking at some of the challenges that we have as part of this. So, okay, and there's a disclaimer, although I work for Unisys, okay, all the views that I'm expressing here are my personal views. Okay, I don't want my company to be legally responsible for anything what I say. Okay, so it is my personal view and not the view of my company. Oops. Okay, I think if you look at the background information on IT sector, IT and BPM, business process management area, that constitute about 8% of the country's GDP, okay, which is a phenomenal growth over the last 10-15 years. And it also contributes significantly to the public welfare, in terms of the taxation, the salaries that are paid to the various employees. And in the global market, we contribute about 7% of the total IT industry. And 60% of the firms use India for testing services. Okay, that is where mostly you start your association with a multinational company. You start as a testing, try to understand, build the relationship, then start doing support work, then start doing development work. That's how the life cycle, how you try to increase your market share within the company's IT portfolio on a year-on-year basis. And there is actually rapidly growing urban infrastructure, as we have got various IT centers. I think Pune is one of the leading IT centers. Bangalore is another one, Bombay, Delhi, Gurgaon and other areas, Chennai. And there are now second tier companies are coming up. And then even rural BPOs are coming up. I think there are villages which has got hardly 1,000, 2,000 people, where they are setting up rural BPOs with 100 people, 150 people, where there are decent college education available for in the villages. So they have set up rural BPOs. And that's also becoming a popular concept. And the Indian IT industry has climbed about 200 billion in the past 5 years. Okay, I want to talk about the previous point also. The urban infrastructure has increased. Subsequently, the pains of that is come through. Okay, if you look at Bangalore today, it's practically sometimes impossible for me to go from one of my engineering centers in the city to the another engineering center in Whitefield. If I have to do that, I have to spend about 5 to 6 hours in traveling every day. Okay, that's the pain that you go through, because the infrastructure hasn't really kept pace with the growth of everything else that is happening. I think I'm sure Pune has seen tremendous increase. I think when I was going back yesterday evening from here to have dinner, I think it took us more than 30-40 minutes, okay, for us to drive through probably 5-6 kilometers, I think. And so I think that is there the things which the government need to focus on as we go through to make it better. And the other one which I also want to touch is some of the statistics are on the other side. Okay, we are talking about a revenue of 118 billion in 2014, out of which majority are in IT services. Okay, the 88 billion is the export business. If you take the 88 billion, about 52 billion are on the IT services. Then the BPM is about 20 billion. Then the engineering and R&D services and software products is the last with 14 billion. Okay, and if you take where the money is, okay, the money is in the last one. Okay, that is where most of the companies make their money. If you have a good engineering and software R&D and a good software technology product, okay, you make billions. Okay. And then the ecosystem that comes with it in terms of solutions that you provide around those technology products, the services that you make out of those technology products really multiply very rapidly the money that a company can make. And that is my area of specialty. Okay. So I'm going to put a case here later forward as to that is probably where India should really look at and focus. Okay. I think there are various other drivers that this is again from the Government of India Make in India portal. These are not my slides. Okay, so I have pulled out the data and put them into your slide. But the one on the right side is what I would like to really debate on. Okay, we really need to think. Okay, we are saying we are contributing to about 8% of the GDP. Do we have a leading IT company which like Microsoft or Google or Cisco or Alibaba in China, okay, or WeChat of China? Do we have any such company in India? Okay, we don't. What we have is a lot of services, a lot of call centers. Okay, and I think I was seeing the labor rates, which Ramesh, isn't it? Yep. Okay, presented. If I take the labor rates on an IT industry, okay, China and India are not far away. Okay, so if I take cost of Bangalore versus cost of Shanghai, an engineer probably in Shanghai costs slightly more. But if I go to a center in China in a place like Chengdu or Nanjing, it's probably cheaper for me to go there. Okay, and we are talking about in India an average of about $25,000 for a software engineer for a multinational company like us. If I am talking about in China, it could be very similar. It could be $30,000 US dollars per year. And but if you look at that with the Western countries, it can vary between 80K to 100K US dollars. And with the major difference is Indian prices, the labor rates are going up on an average 10 to 15% minimum every year. Whereas if you take China, the rate of labor cost increase is half of that. If I go to the Western countries, nowadays it's practically negligible. You are talking about a very low single digit. You are talking about 2%, 3% salary increase in the Western nation, developed nations. So the salary gap will bridge. And you will also find the areas where we are working today, the IT services and the BPO, there are other countries which will take over, okay? Because there are a lot more countries like Vietnam has got a very young, I think India is a very young country. Vietnam is probably the youngest country in the world, okay, today in terms of age. And they will take over a lot of the BPO work. And countries like Philippines already taking up a lot of BPO work. So what happens is, as the labor rate goes up in India, people will move towards much more lower cost countries. Okay? So we will find where we are today on the BPO and services, unless we elevate ourselves to go into much more high value add, we are going to be in a situation where we cannot sustain. Okay? And I think the China communication issues used to be a problem. I started the center in China about 9 years back. And at that time, I used to have challenges in hiring people with good English-speaking capabilities at a senior level. If I have to go for a managerial level, I will have problems. So I will generally go for expat Chinese who wants to come back and relocate and settle back in the country. So I used to look for them. And then the younger generation Chinese were getting there. But today I can tell you the younger generation Chinese English is far better. Okay, is extremely good, I should say. Okay, in some cases I would say they are probably better than India. Okay, because I'm presenting an unbiased view, because having had the opportunity of managing teams back in India as well as in China. So you will find that the language communication gaps will bridge. As these younger generation people come up to the managerial roles, you will find those gaps will go away. Okay. And today I have a team in China of about 60 plus people who are able to manage global customers. They are able to articulate and discuss their issues with global customers. The average age of my group team in China is 31 years. Okay. So they are a very young team. They are able to do that. Okay. So I think what I'm trying to highlight here is the communication probably was a problem 10 years ago, and it is going away. So that's the main emphasis I'm trying to say. And then the salary increase in other countries. So China will give a run for money on the IT industry for India. Okay? And we need to be cautious unless we are reinventing ourselves to go into high value add. Look at areas where we can really make a lot more money and create an ecosystem which is, to me, is purely on the product areas. We should be able to create products like Google or WhatsApp or Facebook. Okay, there are a lot of other innovative ideas. I think Internet of Things is coming. Somebody talked about 3D printing. Okay, 3D printing is coming. So there are wonderful ideas. I think you can do WhatsApp team. I think, I don't know, how many of you use WhatsApp here? Okay, almost everybody. Okay, and do you know what's the team size of WhatsApp that develops the whole thing? No? Make a guess. Anybody wants to go for it? Make a guess. Okay. It's a 2-digit number. Okay, 65 people. Okay, and that company is valued at billions. So you don't need a large investment and a large team. All you need is, the Internet of Things is a wonderful thing. I think 3-4 people together can create wonders. Okay, I think agriculture is a major area of focus for India in the future. I think I was doing some research on before for this meeting. I found that the agriculture investment, agricultural labor has come down so dramatically, and whereas the services labor has diagonally increased so dramatically, we will land ourselves in a situation unless otherwise we are able to provide highly productive agricultural infrastructure and the tools and the systems to support it. I think India as a country will start struggling in agriculture, which is, I think, for a population of more than 1 billion people, it's a bigger challenge.
So can you conclude in 2 minutes?
Yep, I will be. Okay. And I think this is my slide. Okay. So this is what I use as my gospel when I set up a technology center in any country. Okay. So what are the products and solutions, in what the key characteristics of that should be? I think the one is, for a product, the life cycle is long. It can go from anywhere between 10 years to 20, 30 years. We can have multiple releases of it. Whereas the life cycle of development, which used to be 1 year, 2 years, are now using agile methodologies, are becoming months and weeks. Okay, so every sprint you are supposed to be making a product with additional functionality which can be released to the customer. So I think there are characteristics that we need to be looking at. Multiple customers for a single product, which means the solution should be of a very high quality. A single quality issue can bring down multiple customers. And high reliability. In terms of people, I think strong computer science engineering background is required, and similarly electronics and electrical engineering background is required. I'm talking here about fundamentals. Fundamentals of computer science, fundamentals of electronics is highly required. And that is where I think China has an advantage over India. Okay, Chinese engineering graduates of computer science are technically ahead of number of the India's computer science graduates, if you exclude the elite computer science institutes of India like IITs. If you take the elite institute, I think they do extremely good computer science, but then 80-90% of them leave the country. They don't work in India. Okay. And the systems engineers with inherent desire for specialization, who wants to be very specialized on particular area, and like technical challenges. Everybody in India, generally, a lot of them want to become managers. Okay. So I think that's a mindset we need to change. We need people who want to be technologists. We need people who want to spend their life in technology. whether it is 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. And I think that is that's a cultural change we need to bring within the mindset of the various engineers in the country. Because people come and ask me after spending 5 years, say, when can I become a manager? I'm going to get married, okay? Because I want to be a team lead, okay? There is an expectation in the family that I should become a manager before I get married, okay? So I think we need to really socially rethink the whole thing of how we develop the culture of the people. In terms of technology, we need people who want to think miles deep, okay? Not necessarily miles wide. So you can take any technology. If you want to be an Internet of Things specialist, just focus on Internet of Things. Understand every bit of it. Understand 2 miles, 5 miles down the depth of what is Internet of Things about, how can I enable it. It could be on even a single sector, whether it is health, healthcare, or agriculture. Specialize on one thing, but know it well. And then learning and development is another area where we need to focus on. Okay, I think what we should look at, I think the political leaders have laid out the vision, I think whether it is 1901 or 1991 or 2014, okay, Make in India, a campaign has been there for a number of years. But the industry leaders now should take the leadership. I think the industry leaders are the one who can convert this vision into reality. And the industry leaders can drive to build quality solutions and products. And then the media has to play a very major role. I think our media has to really look at how do we communicate what is happening in terms of Make in India, in terms of big projects and the impactful projects, what is happening across the country, and how it is going to benefit the community in India, and how that can also be a showcase to the rest of the world as to how India is changing to the benefit. At the end of the day, if Make in India is not able to benefit each and every Indian, then I think we have not realized the dream. It doesn't matter whether we have got a 20 billion economy or 50 billion economy and the money is flowing outside. I think what we really need is an ecosystem where the money that we gain from the Make in India campaign is helping the value and the standard of living of the people to go up. I hope that that gets realized in the coming years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lakshminarayanan. Before you leave the rostrum, I would like to ask your verdict whether making India a global manufacturing hub, is it a myth, a reality, or would be a reality?
I think it will be a reality, but it is a very challenging road ahead.
Thank you.
I think as Dr. Professor Ganesan said, there's a lot of media hype around it. There's a lot of workshops, more workshops than what is really happening in the background is going on. So the people, as I said, the industry leaders have to really now get in and start